Okay, guys, can I get everyone to take a seat? I promise we'll give you an opportunity to network in the next little bit. We just have a couple more MVPs to grace our stage. Perfect. So you've been fed and watered. If you're not a morning person, I'm sure you're definitely awake now. And if you're just joining us, don't worry. There's still plenty of golden nuggets that will be dropped this afternoon, so you haven't missed too much. We have the panel discussion that I know you've all been looking forward to. I do have to say this year's panel is extra special in line with our mission to promote diversity and inclusion. So this year, we have an all-female panel. That's right, I am woman, hear me roar. Or in the true sense of tech, I'll say, I am woman, hear me debug. I'm funny, right? Yeah, I know. Guiding the conversation is ShipItCon's moderator, Damien Marshall, with his knack for asking the right questions and keeping the conversation engaging and insightful. No pressure. Damien will be joined by our incredible panelists. We have Browne, who is the CEO and co-founder at Glitch. We have Verna, head of research at Phorest Salon software. Brennan, Chief Transformation Officer at Orfium. Am I saying that right? Yes, amazing. And lastly, Anne-Marie Charrett, leader in quality engineering, author of the Quality Coach's Handbook, and director of engineering. Whew, that's like some pretty tough stuff, guys. We have a powerhouse lineup of women shaping the future of tech, and we're in for an engaging, thought-provoking discussion. So I would love it if you guys could help me give a huge ShipItCon welcome to our panel. Damien, I'll let you guys get up here.
Hello everyone, testing, all good? Yeah, great everyone, so thanks a million for that glorious introduction. So it's great, it's been a fantastic day so far. It's great to see all the amazing talks and to see just how wonderful and how big ShipItCon has become. I've been here every year, so I think this is my 4th panel, so it's good to be part of the growth. And you know, someone said to me last year, it's like, when you're up there chatting, you know, I was reminded of Dara O'Brien, who's a really famous Irish comedian. I was like, oh, amazing, what a compliment. He's like, no, you're not funny, you just sound like him. So my name's Damien, I'm not funny, I sound like Dara O'Brien, and I'm a senior director of engineering at Demonware. Demonware do the online services for Call of Duty. So we're owned by Activision, who were recently bought by Microsoft. So we're going through a lot of interesting changes as Microsoft do their thing with us. So it's a lot of fun times there. So yeah, we've a wonderful panel here. As we said, following on from the theme of this year's change, so what we want to do is explore multiple areas with our panel here. There's a bit about technology, but we also think about business and really importantly people, right? So that's like a thing that we always focus on. That sometimes can get forgotten about when we're going through these shifts, right? It's all great about tech, but like thinking about the people involved is really key. So yeah, the overall topic is change, and what I'd like to do is to open it up, and as a bit of an icebreaker, I'm going to ask each of the panel to introduce themselves briefly, and then just maybe give an anecdote from their career or their experience of something you experienced or something you went to, good or bad. Some people love the really bad stories, makes them feel good, but whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So we'll start off, and you can introduce yourself and give us an anecdote.
Great.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm V. Thanks for having me. Everyone, this is my first ShipItCon, so I'm very happy to be here. For people who do know me, I'm known as like a bit of a change junkie, and I once did a survey in a job and came out as the most risk friendly person in the team, which is weird considering I work a lot in reliability and infrastructure and site reliability. But hey, yeah. I've moved my kids around the world a couple of times, from New Zealand to Sweden and back here to Ireland. So change is definitely something I thrive on, something I follow. But I've noticed a shift over the years. Back in 2011, many of you might remember there was a series of really large earthquakes in New Zealand, and our office was off the grid overnight. And we went through a period of trying to find new offices, trying to make sure everyone was safe. People were really disenfranchised. I had a very young family at the time, so it was a nightmare. And I found it personally really, really difficult at the time. Yep. Fast forward to COVID, I was back living in Ireland. I had a support structure around me. I had my family, extended family around me. My experience during COVID was completely different to that time. People assumed that they would have that kind of same reaction. Yeah. So for me, I think the big lesson is like context is really, really important in a change. Yeah. And everybody is not in the same place. And we all saw this during COVID, right? Some people were having the time of their life. It was a really nice summer. They were sitting out in the garden drinking gin and tonic at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you had people like me who were homeschooling kids and looking after parents and everything else. So context matters a huge amount in change. And it was even talked about this morning about, you know, change that's forced on you. It just feels different. Yeah,
and it's important to remember that, right? That even for yourself, like you had a kind of a negative experience and then maybe an okay one, but then that can switch around. Even though it was good in the past doesn't mean that and for your people around you that you're dealing with, it's all like, you know, it's like, it's just, like for me, it's just like being able to work from home was great with the kids, but then I knew other people, like junior engineers, really struggling with that. They're like, I want to go into the office. I'm like, what? It was like, oh yeah, of course. You know, because I had my time as, you know, in the office having the crack and stuff like that. That's important. So yeah, all right, thanks for that.
Anne-Marie Charrett. So I have a new title actually.
Oh, okay.
So there's another change.
Oh, great.
So they foolishly, the organisation said to me that I could choose my own title.
Oh.
So I'm now an engineering futurist.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Oh,
very cool. Basically says absolutely nothing, but sounds really, really important. So
we have similar titles.
Yeah, I get
really
to kind of swan around the the company and sort of to talk about change in the quality engineering space. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, I think like going back, I mean, there's the way very similar to you, V, like there's, you know, I remember in 2014 and everything was being disrupted, right? And, you know, Uber had just arrived and there was all this concept of disrupting industries. And I think, you know, we were all really excited. I remember really being excited being part of a fintech and, you know, we're going to disrupt the banking industry, and it was super, super exciting to be able to deliver products in 6 months and stuff like that. Then, you know, so I've always been sort of into how can we improve things? How can we do engineering better? How can we reduce waste? How can we deliver products, you know, that we really love at speed? And that's not an easy problem to solve. But a couple of years ago, I was working with a scale-up and they let go half my team.
Oh, okay.
50% of my team got laid off, and I had absolutely no say in that, and I had no idea that they were going to do this. Oh boy, was I upset about being disrupted, you know. So it was a big lesson for me because, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, there's when you disrupt, someone is always impacted. And, you know, if you're the one who has the agency, if you're the one who's the one making the decisions, it's way, way easier because you are in control of that situation. But I think it's always really important to remember that there's humanity out there that is impacted by that decision that you make, and even in the software and the products that we have today and stuff like that. So it was a big lesson for me, just at many different levels, I think. So...
Yeah, no, I think we talked a bit about that, but yeah, sometimes there's an assumption about disruption that you are the disruptor. You know what I mean? That you're not being affected by it. You know, that kind of can go either way. So it's an important perspective to have, I think, to understand the ramifications. So, all right, cool.
So, hi guys, I'm Aisling. Thanks for having me as well. I'm CEO and co-founder of a relatively new startup called Glitch. So I, for my sins, have been working with startups for about 12 years. some startups being extremely, like they failed. We lost lots of money, people got let go, been through a lot of change like that, and then was part of a startup, Wayflyer here in Ireland, just after they secured a huge Series A round. I think I was like employee 70. Within a year, there was 500 people.
Oh, God.
It was insane. And then the arse went out of it, and they fired 50% of the people because the space changed massively. And I went through all that change. I was actually made redundant, which was like very, very hard. Never been made redundant before, and it really made me kind of sit back and think, like, what do I really want to do? And hence why I ended up, like, I've always worked with founders, I've been exposed to, the highs and lows, and I was like, I might as well try my hand at it. So that's the reason I ended up sitting here.
Yes.
And the biggest change really that happened to me was when I started my business, I decided, it's a great idea to get pregnant. I went from just being the individual employee to the founder or employer to now the founder, employer, and caretaker of another human being, which is, that's the biggest change I'll ever have. But it really made me understand what's important in life, but also in work, and also how to probably build a really good culture with a team, because I want people to have lives and families. So I think it's made me really reassess how I wanted to build a business and the culture.
Yeah, that's interesting. Again, it's kind of a common theme. It's about perspective, I think. Not being single-minded about something, but just understanding that, and things like this give you perspective, right, on what you want. So, yeah, cool. And Verna?
Hey everyone, my name is Verna, and I work as the head of research at Phorest. I've been there for 7 years, and Phorest provides software for salon and spa owners around the world. But I originally started out in radiation therapy, so I studied and worked for a few years in the field. Radiation therapy is a form of cancer treatment, so we would work anywhere between with 20 to 30 patients every day, treating them for cancer. At the time, I was working in what was known as a paper department. So basically, patient files were big files, everything that was signed, really confidential information, really important information, all in this paper file. So nothing was digital at the time. And then I decided in 2018 to move into software and join Phorest as an intern. And that was a massive change. There was a lot of wonderful overlap. Being empathetic for your user of the software is very similar to being empathetic towards a patient in a hospital, being able to ask non-leading questions or just general organization. But that was where I draw the line in overlap between being a healthcare worker and working in tech. So there's a steep learning curve. I had to learn how to use a laptop. I remember manually sending hundreds of emails one by one to customers because I didn't know what a mail merge was, or printing off survey responses and analysing them with a notebook and pen. So times have changed, and that was a steep learning curve. And when I look back at it, I think, a lot has happened in the last 7 years that has, made the change worth it, but it's because of taking small micro steps towards it rather than looking at, where do I see myself in 5 years? It's, no, where do I see myself at the end of the week? What can I achieve that'll get me towards my goal? So, yeah. I
always think it's really fascinating when someone comes into tech from a completely different background. It just gives that perspective, I think, as well. So it's so I think it's really valuable, actually, just to have it. So cool. Cool. So we can move on to the next topic here, which is kind of again, we've been talking about it today. We've heard a lot of people talk about it. That I think Sean Blanchfield said he'll buy lunch for anyone who guesses number of times AI is mentioned. I think he said that on LinkedIn.
Very happy with himself.
So yeah, it's just a lot of stuff is happening. There's huge shifts. There's a lot of noise out there. People just wondering what to do. I guess I'd be interested in kind of some perspectives on technology landscape change that you guys have been with, how you managed it. What was your experience from it? So maybe you can give us your perspective on that.
Sure. I think Sean mentioned the dot-com bubble this morning. I'm definitely old enough to remember that, where it was just, for the young people in the crowd, a huge overinvestment in any company that had .com at the end of its name. They didn't even necessarily have any product or any idea. There was no feasibility, there was no viability. So it feels very, very similar to that. Out of that time, we did get some of the tech giants. We got, Google out of that time. So we will still see some people survive. But there's going to be a lot of AI companies that kind of come and go. And it's interesting to try and navigate and figure out the hype and...
That's why I find that, like, we talk a little bit about it, but there's that, like, you know, what should you be doing? Because I'd be on X or Twitter for my sins. I'm like, what's this person talking about? This will replace Hollywood. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's going on? You know what I mean? There's all this, so much noise, and making, as technically, you know, as leaders, trying to help make the right decision but not miss on things. It's just like,
absolutely.
You know,
Product market fit, I think, is huge, and actually really understanding whether or not your product is viable.
Yes.
You know, like even just in the last week, OpenAI had a new major release, and there's a whole load of startups who are saying their features just killed my startup. You know, there's a whole meme about it. You know, so I think that's the challenge, that you have to really try and future think, but it's difficult. You know, if OpenAI see that you're making a whole load of money out of PDF conversion, well, why don't we put PDF conversion into OpenAI? You know,
cool. Verna, we talked about a kind of a tech stack change, right? And managing that a little bit, right?
Exactly. So it's hard to think of tech changes and not think about the experience at Phorest. We've just recently rebuilt our entire platform. I say the collective we are fantastic product and dev folks. But we've rebuilt our entire desktop application that was in Java Swing to Ember. We've rebuilt our mobile apps from native to React Native. It's been a multi-year project. And as part of that, we learned lots of lessons along the way, because we realized customers don't care. They don't want us.
They don't care that you're doing a nice new update that will allow you to maintain it.
Absolutely not. And in the background, we're thinking, if we do this, we can, you know, we can build quicker, ship quicker, learn quicker. We can deliver cool stuff for our customers. But customers, again, they don't care in the short term. So, you know, how we, in terms of implementing that change with minimal disruption, our customers are self-described as not tech savvy. Their job doesn't revolve around the role of software. You know, they're hairstylists, they're salon owners. They work with people. Software just facilitates the growth of their business. So we actually did this significant change on our side, but from the customer's perspective, it doesn't really seem like there's much of a change. You know, the UI is very similar. Hopefully performance is better and all of those things, but that's kind of a big learning for us.
Like I work, my role is in our platform engineering department. So we would build the tech that other developers in Demonware would use to build services. And it's very similar, even for technical, like even when you're dealing with technical people, because we're like, hey, we got this new deployment tech, and they're like, I really, you know, I've got stuff to do. You know what I mean? You know, so it's like, what's the value of it? Like, how will it make my life better? And it's a difficult sell. Sometimes, like, you have to necessarily update things just to be compliant and etc. But it's like, it can be a tough sell just in general. And I think understanding, I think it goes for everyone, any user of your platform. And there's a long, I think one thing that I was just thinking about, there's a long tail in it sometimes, unless you're very, I've made a mistake of assuming that it'll just happen, but you actually have to make it happen, I guess, you know.
Completely, There's so many steps that if you cut that corner, you get there quicker. But you upset more people along the way. You know, you're like, oh, we could ship this and people could, you know, re-upload their information. It's like, no, that's, you know, and Mark mentioned it earlier. It's not just about building something that solves a problem. It's also the migration. Migration is really important. So how you do that seamlessly is really important.
Aisling, would be...
Well, we started building the product in we started thinking, I met Kingsley in an incubator, like on September 23. October is when OpenAI released all that new functionality to make it like incredibly faster for people to like try out and build new ideas. So we're kind of like riding this like new change wave, and the product that we built is like we're implementing systems for B2B businesses to like streamline how they acquire customers online. So instead of going to an agency or outsourcing it to a consultant, so like we're sitting in meetings listening to how people are talking about implementing new systems, like implementing change. It's really interesting to like listen to them. But like as a business, and I'm taking a lot of that in as well, because as a business, we're building, we want to be really lean. We want to adopt AI internally. The engineering team is like using, I'm sure all of you guys are using it, like Claude, they're testing out Windsurf. There's a fucking new thing every 12 hours. But it's really hard for them to like, I always say to them, like, I don't know how your brain is not melted, because engineers, like, by like just they always want to be on top of like what is the new best thing out there. But if you're getting fed so many new things on a regular basis, it's really hard to actually continue to build scalably. So thankfully the lads are like super experienced, and they also know the grass isn't always greener. Like I think a lot of the time like they spend like talking, like they have like specific times that they'll talk about it. They have groups of people that they'll connect with to talk about it. They'll get referrals, but like at the end of the day, they kind of have to stick to something and kind of move forward as long as it helps us get to where from A to B in the best way possible, efficiently.
Okay. Yeah. So sometimes it's nice to have some grumpy engineers kind of just
Absolutely.
like with So like I guess like have you thought about any like, and maybe like, you know, I know you're early on, but like have you thought about any way of thinking about like making those type of decisions when things are moving so fast in the AI, or is it just that you have experienced people right now who can help make those decisions?
Like I'd love to be like, yeah, we have a plan in place. This is how we're governing it.
It's okay.
But no, we don't.
Yeah.
Like it's just like we have to trust each other now.
Yeah.
We're only a team of 7.
Yeah.
We always want to stay lean anyway. So we know like as a business what we want to represent and like the culture that we want. So I think like that kind of like that maybe helps the decision making and making sure that you're not just going off and like testing something for like 3 days and then you're not delivering like the actual product.
Yeah. Like one thing we try to think about in Demore is choosing boring tech, which I think is sometimes a common thing, which is like it's been around for 5 years, or whatever length of time, and it's boring, but it gets the job done, I guess. That kind of way. It's like it's not like alpha version or whatever. So, but it's difficult to manage the excitement, I think, of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So cool. And from your perspective?
I mean, I view things a lot through the quality lens, and I think even though it's not necessarily a new thing, I think the SaaS platforms really has totally transformed how we think about quality and what we perceive as quality. Okay. Because I think when we have SaaS platforms, we can actually recover from failure faster. And before that, we were often dependent on large releases, waiting to do a release. And so you had to make sure that everything was absolutely perfect before you released it. But with the onslaught of SaaS, it basically meant that, an observability and recoverability allowed us to kind of rethink about our ideas about quality and testing, and that maybe we could have, we could actually ship to production and we can find bugs in production before our customers are even aware that it exists, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's been a real game changer for a lot of the things and how you perceive and think about quality. I think we have over-indexed on that. It has allowed us to deliver faster. I mean, that is one of the benefits. We can ship faster because we don't necessarily have to have massive testing phases, right? And we have our test automation. There's lots of things to that. But I think sometimes, we have over-indexed a bit on that. And I think that when we look at, we talk about enshittification, we heard that word this morning. And these platforms, these two-sided platforms that are basically, things like TikTok and Twitter, and I will add Meetup and LinkedIn to that because I think they're on their way to enshittification. But, they lock in the user, right?
Yeah.
With this sense of community, and, you're going to have, and you get followers, and you get a sense of belonging, and you're staying, and you feel compelled to stay with that platform, and you might miss out if you don't. But on the back end, you've got the suppliers who are selling ads and marketing and things like that. And they're often brought into the platform because, they have, they have a captured audience, right?
Yeah.
And they say, hey, we can market to this demographics. We've got some great data and exactly what the demographics are, and we can actually sell to that. And they get a very low price, but the price keeps going up, and so they then get locked into the platform. And now you've suddenly got this quality, this experience, this, sometimes they call it enshittification as, a decrease of quality over time.
Yeah.
And so you get to this post where both users are actually having a really crappy experience on the platform, but they're locked in, right? And I think people are starting to kind of become more aware about this, and they're starting to value other things like privacy and things like that. And I think, you know, with a lot of talk I heard this morning was, you know, how important it is to build trust with your customer. And I think we're going to start seeing that shift of against enshit. I think there's unfortunately a bit more to go with enshittification, but I think we will see like smaller companies like starting to really value the building the trust with a customer and having a good customer experience. So I'm hoping that we will index more onto that in the future. Okay. So I think that's really important.
Okay, so it's more about like respecting the people, I guess. Is that what you mean, that are on your platforms? Like,
well, at the end of the day, a good business looks after its customers.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And, you know, enshittification is trapping people into that experience. It's not necessarily a great experience for the customer. So I think that, you know, as we see AI building up and sort of fast growth, we're going to get a lot more focus on that trust, and that's going to differentiate companies from this AI slob that's out there, you know? Yeah. And I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah, no, it's something I've been thinking a bit about as well. It's just like it's all like, you know, seeing like a lot of AI generated images, et cetera, and just what will happen to people's perceptions over time. Because now it's like, oh, cool, I've generated, but will it, what will happen to people? Will people just accept it as the norm? Is that it? Is that now the standard? Or will people reject it? Or like, you know, so.
We'll find out.
I guess Anne-Marie might continue talking because our next kind of topic is about disruption. And you kind of touched on something like, you know, disruption can happen. It can be, you know, I know we talked a bit about it, some changes for good, but also maybe some changes that are negative as well, you know. Like you know, you talked a bit about it earlier, but you know, at time you experienced disruption. But did disrupted? I don't know what the term is.
I mean, I think, you know, like I said, my team was. I think that was one of the biggest things. Was, you know, I'd always enjoyed, you know, driving change. I was the change agent, and then suddenly not having that, being disrupted and not having any agency on that. And I think, you know, I think that was massively impactful for me. And I think, you know, anything that you can do about helping teams through that is really, really important. And, you know, there's not a lot of necessarily, you know, I wasn't necessarily able to, I didn't have a lot of agency in myself. But I think being able to provide as much agency as possible to that team as they went through the process and allowing them to experience the grieving process of losing your job, right? And being able to just be there and not just go, oh, it'll be fine, you know? But just allow them to be angry. You know, I think there's something really important about allowing people to sit in their space and allow their emotions and experience that to process it. You know,
have it be resolved a little bit, I guess. Like,
well, because I think over time, you know, you do have to, you'll respond, you know, you will, you know, I've been, you know, I left, I actually took redundancy from that job. And so I had left. I was angry for quite a long time after that. And I think, you know, but I got over it. And I think that was the thing. It's like, if you give yourself a bit of space and time, you actually can get over these things. But it needs time. But now I'm in a better place. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember that when you're in the middle of it. You know, like it's hard to see the wood from the trees. You're just like red. But I think, like, you know, they say one door shut, but it's quite true. And things will get better, and you know.
But I guess what you're saying, it's not to rush it either. You know what kind of way? It's not to like rush through it. It's still, you can have that perspective, but also appreciate what's going on.
And I kind of feel a bit of a badass now that I've gone through all of that.
Formed you, it made you futurist.
I can do this.
Aisling, you're kind of, but to talk a bit about like AI democratizing.
So obviously, like AI is democratizing how, like, it's making it super simple for anybody, and Tom, Dick, and Harry to go off and create a business idea. Like, that is great, but then there's a load of shite out there and a load of noise, and it's really hard for good businesses to, if they're starting off, to get in front of the right clients, or get and just to sift through all of the noise, and for people to basically going back to your point about establishing trust with your customer. It's actually, I think it's going to be a lot a lot harder just because there's so much out there. But it is amazing because then you have my engineering team who are like working, there's 3 of them, but they're working like a 15, 20 person team. Like that's insane as well. So like there's good and bad parts of it. It's just like, I don't know how you, like, I don't really know. Disruption is like, there is good and bad parts of it. But, you know, for us, it's like it's good on one side because we're able to like build out the business. But the other side is like, it's making it very hard for, definitely harder anyway than I've seen when I've been in other businesses to get to market. Like, there's a lot of, there's a lot of noise to sift through.
Yeah, I guess everyone has the same,
Yeah.
everyone has the same tools, I guess, right?
Yeah,
that you're all building from, right?
Yeah.
Very good. Verna, you talked a bit about like GDPR and capitalizing on it amazingly.
Yeah,
in a
there
way.
can be disruptions.
Yeah.
Well, from our experience in terms of Phorest, like there's disruptions across the market when new regulation or new legislation comes out in the regions that you're operating in. And so a couple of years ago, GDPR came out, which is like the data protection for consumers, which would impact a salon because, you know, they have information on their customers. And we were able to kind of dive into that and build out an opportunity from that. But more recently, there was a new tipping legislation in the UK that came into effect last October. So we heard about it maybe like 9 months beforehand. And it's one of those things, if you know a salon, tipping is really important. It's like the restaurant industry. People tip their hairstylist, they tip their beauty therapist after they pay for an appointment. With COVID, people are carrying less cash, so people aren't giving cash tips like they used to. And this new legislation meant that 100% of tips had to go directly to the stylist. So they put a bit of a weight on the salon owner to try figure this out, go through payroll. It caused a problem for them. And so that's a bit of a disruption. And, you know, we could have sat back and go, okay, this is just going to be a problem for our customers, but it's a problem for everyone's customers. Or we can see, can we solve this problem through a solution that we can build? And because of that, we were able to build a solution where it didn't disrupt the customer flow when they go to pay for an appointment. They pay for at the card terminal like normal, but they have the option to tip there and the funds go out separately to the stylist. So it's one of those situations where it's created an opportunity that I'm not sure we ever would have built upon, to be honest with you, without that legislation. And also legislation, you know, it's there. It's something you have to put up with. So it is disruptive, but can it be an opportunity? So.
Yeah, I love that example because, you know, I've had this a few times in the past where we've done something in work and I've like just had to deal with it. And then in a couple of years' time, I see that someone has built a successful business out of what we've done. It's like, damn it. It's like, I should have thought of that. But I think just spotting that and saying, oh, well, actually, everyone has this problem, you know, and spotting the paths there.
Yeah,
you know.
you just need that insider knowledge, you know. Like the guys at Cota have, like that, you know, the pension bill has come out.
Oh,
They
yes.
build a whole product around it and have become really successful.
Yeah.
That's the dream, you know, find out the inside knowledge, build the product around it.
Yeah, no, it is. Just like, just understanding, like having a bit of perspective. What does this, like, I think it's kind of like taking a step back and go, what does this mean? And then using just the implications of it. So it's a great example. So cool. Avi, do you have anything?
Yeah, I like to take a bit of a sociological view of it, bit like a macro level. I'm pro-disruption because in general it breaks down big power structures that have existed around, you know, financial institutions, healthcare. And when you see a lot of the advances that have been made, you know, it just gives so much more access to so many more people who would normally not even be able to participate or have a seat at the table. So, you know, I absolutely have empathy for, you know, taxi drivers who got frozen out when Uber came. But at the same time, you know, giving thousands of people jobs and a way to earn a living is something that I'm behind. Yeah. And, you know, there's whole communities of female entrepreneurs in Africa using mobile banking to run small businesses and hide their money from their husbands because they're not allowed to have money. And, you know, lots of stuff like that that's just really, really empowering for marginalized people around.
Yeah, so again, kind of comes to that democratizing it, you know, that kind of way, and just giving people open up opportunities. So maybe you could just continue talking a little bit just about our last topic, which is about people, right? So it's most important, but we kind of, I feel like we've touched on it a few times, but you know, at the end of the day, people are involved and they're necessary to respond to change or to implement it and everything like that. So maybe you could talk a little bit about a time you've had to like lead people through it, or just your experience or an opinion on just like the human element of change itself, like individuals?
I really resonated with what Anne-Marie was talking about when 50% of her team was laid off. I've been in similar situations. And like Aisling or Verna, you don't always know that these layoffs are going to happen. Sometimes they just come out of nowhere. I think for me as a leader, being as transparent as I can and giving people as much information as I can is hugely important. Respecting that people are intelligent and rational and also have feelings is really important. I think giving them as much information as you possibly can, taking feedback back to senior leadership, uncensored, right? It's like, well, you're the leadership team who made this decision, so it's really important that you hear what people have to say about it. And, like I say, just being as transparent as you possibly can. And then for me, the big acceptance is, I'm not going to get you all there. I'm not going to get you all to the same place of acceptance at the end of that conversation. In some cases, it might take years. And I think that's really important. I can't just explain it to you and you'll all feel better. Like, that's not how that works. So I think there's just respect that has to happen with that. And then I generally sit with my team and feel the feels.
And I think it's important because it is, as a leader working through this, it's also very challenging, right? And so if you understand also that people, because it's hard on you. You know what I mean? Like working through it, I know it's hard on people.
But don't make it about you.
But I suppose but you understanding that people also cope differently can help you manage your own response, because it's a challenging time, So maybe Anne-Marie, you could follow up there.
I mean, I feel I've sort of spoken a bit to this already, but I think that there's when dealing with people, but sometimes it's not things like layoffs. I mean, if we're thinking about things like AI being rolled out within our organisations, and it's going to impact a lot of us, right? In this room, we'll all be impacted, and I think people deal with things very differently, and some people are going to stick their head in the sand and don't want to know. Some people are going to get angry about it. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to kind of sit and wait, and so everybody's going to respond. Everyone responds to change differently, and I think as someone in leadership and engineering, it's on us to help all those different people through the process. And I think, the one thing, I think it was one of the talks talked about hope, like a lot of the things people are looking for hope. So how do we bring people through that, this whole change that's coming through us with, what is the hope that we are telling them and giving them and helping them through that process? And I think that's something for all of us to sort of be thinking about. And I'd love to see lots of conversations around that. I don't think we sort of talk about AI, and we talk about sort of, being AI ready and getting the skills and everything like that. But I think there's a real human side about that everyone's thinking but not necessarily expressing is, what's it going to be like? Like, what's it going to do to us? And all that uncertainty is sitting with all of us inside. And I feel like we need to find a way of being able to have conversations about that. And what will we look like? What will the world look like for engineers? People are talking about organizations with 6 engineers. That's 96 other engineers who are no longer working as engineers. What are we doing in that time? And I think, it's on us to help sort of try and help people work through that. And we can't do that if we're not talking about it. So.
And I guess people will be internalizing that and then making decisions based on that you don't that's not outward facing,
that's
but
right.
That kind of way, maybe rejecting or that kind of way. So
totally.
Cool.
And as I said, some people will love it and not even think twice about it. Fantastic, good on you.
Yes.
But I have lots of questions personally, and I see the positives, but I also see there's other things about, the talk about ethics today.
Yes.
These things strike me deeply. I feel like we have this kind of conflict in ourselves a little bit about it all. Well, at least I do.
And
I don't know. I don't know how everyone else feels, but
I feel like I suppose I've been in about 20 years now of my career, and this feels like a real unique moment in that like consideration of what's going to happen, I guess, you know. So, Aisling, what's your...
Yeah, well, I'm like, as I was saying earlier, sitting in with teams who are implementing our system and changing things that they do day to day. So some of those teams, like you said, Anne-Marie, they love it every day. They're like, this is amazing. I can see how it's going to impact me, because those people are thinking about the future. They're not like, oh, it's going to take over my life. And then there's other people who genuinely what we're doing is doing what they do day to day. But the thing is, it's it will change their job. That's how I try and position it, saying like, AI can only get you so far. I don't think Sean would agree with me there, but would only get you so far. The way human in the loop is always going to be so important. I think like connections, people, meeting them, like that is like the commodity that I see becoming more and more important as you go on. I don't think like a system and people interacting with systems will be like it for the rest of our lives. I think people will still need to communicate. So. Yeah, it's a really interesting time. It's interesting to be part of like being involved in that change. But being really mindful of people. It is like you have to be mindful of people's like emotions and how they're going to deal with it. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Final words to Verna?
Yeah, I looked at it the lens of, I suppose, any kind of change management when it comes to like maybe roadmap or business strategy. And it kind of sounds obvious, but for me, I have to believe in the change before I communicate it. Because sometimes that's really easy. It's really straightforward. You just get it. You're like, it's obvious we should do this.
Yeah.
There's other times you're like, oh, I'm not entirely sure I understand the why just yet.
Yeah.
And asking that question of whoever it is, if it's senior leadership or your peers, and even thinking about the team that you're going to be communicating the change to, who in that group is going to maybe vocalize their concerns or their, unhappiness with that. Can you ask those questions up front? And so you're bringing that to the meeting. You're obviously meeting them with empathy. But you're able to go, okay, I've considered all of this, but this is why I believe in this change. And the other side of it, again, thinking along the lines of like roadmap or business strategy change, find out what motivates people. Again, I'm drawing on experience from Phorest, but our product and development folks really listen to the user. They listen to our customer. They jump on calls with our customers constantly. Like if we can bring that customer voice into those meetings of like, they voice their frustration because we don't solve this problem, or they, told us how delighted they were when we fixed something last month. Can we bring that joy again? I think kind of speaking on that level as well is important.
Yeah, that was really interesting to think about, because whenever I'm thinking about communicating message, there's like two or three people that I go, I wonder what question they will ask. And then I'm always like, I'll try and answer that one first again. So great stuff. Great stuff. Well, we're at time. I think it was a really interesting panel. I really appreciate all your insights. I think it was a very unique perspective. I think a good focus on the human part and the implications, some good and some bad. So it's been a really fascinating session. So thanks very much, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
As always, the panel is always thought-provoking, inspiring, and we had an incredible lineup.